Hi, everyone. My name is Ashlyn, and I'm so thankful for all of you joining us today. I'm pleased to be your host for this interior design session as a part of Ryerson's virtual open house, which is taking place all of this week for the rest of the week, all the way until Friday. There are many sessions taking place across the virtual open house, so we encourage you to visit our website and register to any and all of the sessions that are of interest to you. To start, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land. If we wouldn't mind just flipping over to the next slide, thank you. Toronto is in the dish with one spoon territory. The dish with one spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. Ryerson has shifted into an essential services model to help prevent the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have put together a series of virtual sessions in order to share information and connect with you. Ryerson is working diligently to provide students with fulsome experiences while maintaining the health and safety of our community. Before we begin, I just want to go over a few Zoom housekeeping tips. First, we encourage you to ask questions. We have many faculty and staff on hand here to answer all and any of your questions. To ask a question, all you need to do is click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. When you do that, a dialog window will pop up where you will be able to type out your question. If you are having any audio or video issues, feel free to flag it by letting us know through the Q&A pod, and one of our staff members will be there to assist you. Also, you can arrange the screen any which way you'd like. It's not going to affect the way others see the seminar or the way that we view our screens. So feel free to make any changes to make yourself the most comfortable. This presentation will be closed captioned to ensure accessibility. If you require closed captioning, please select that option at the bottom of your Zoom window. First, we'd like to know who's joining us. We'd like to know who you are. So I'm going to launch a poll so you can let us know. Perhaps you are a prospective student looking to join us next fall, or maybe you are a prospective student who's looking to join us a little bit further into the future. Maybe you're already a university or college student who's looking into transferring. Perhaps you're a parent or guardian, or maybe even a teacher or guidance counselor. Please let us know by using that poll. I see that 82% of you have already gone ahead and answered that. We appreciate it. But again, let us know who you are. We always like to know who you are in order for us to make these presentations the best that we can possibly make them. All right, I'm going to share the results with you all. It seems that about 72% of you are looking into joining us next fall, which is super exciting. You're doing the great first step of doing the research that you need to do. So now I'd like to introduce Lois from the Interior Design Department to start this presentation off.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our School of Interior Design, and I'm delighted that you're able to join us. I know this is an unusual version of our open house, but we're still excited to share with you what we do in interior design and the bigger picture of how students go through our program and what comes out at the end. So myself, and you're also seeing Janine Webster. Maybe Janine, you want to say hello quickly or wait?
Hi, everyone.
And Janine is also joining us. She is the school's academic coordinator, somebody who works very closely with students and admissions and also helps guide us into each year by year of our program. So welcome, and I will be taking you through a number of slides in this presentation that just gives you a sense of how we do things in the school, the kind of experiences you'll have, and the school is known for a few amazing things. We're very much hands-on, which is why I always like to show this image of our workshop, where students have different assignments and our classes are actually held in our workshop. We also have studio spaces, and you'll get glimpses of those throughout the presentation as well. And then the types of projects that you'll work on in our program. And it's nice to know who is looking at us today, just because I can see that most of you are looking to apply for fall 2021. And so that's really helpful to then know this, so that way this presentation can be tailored to letting you see the types of projects you'll work on year by year by year, and then what you finally leave with as you go into the profession of interior design. And so some of the things I'll show you are images like this, a lot of student work that I have prepared for you today. And it's showing you our design studios. And design studio is really the core of what we do. It's where we work on all different types of projects, and they start off with a lot of fundamentals in the first year, and then they increase in complexity as you move up through the years. And we have all different types of studio projects. This is one that is for a workplace interior from a steel case competition that one of our students received an honorable mention, which we're very proud of because it was across all of North America. But workplace environments are, as you can tell, shifting and changing, especially in these current times. And it only gives us even more to think about as we learn how people go back to work and all the different circumstances that we're looking at, especially during this time and everybody being remote and virtual. And it only reinforces how important the space of interiors is to everything that we do. A few of the earlier studio projects look like this, where students are learning how to draw. And I will show you a few examples of the drawing courses that students have. And the one on the right is showing a plan and elevations, things that we talk about in design and the way that we speak about drawings. But also on the left, we introduce students to designing with software programs. So you can then collage or put together different perspectives and views using materials, showing how people use the spaces. And so those are a few of the things that students are doing really in their first year, getting very advanced quite quickly. And so whereas that was a residential project, we also have students work on retail projects, and a lot of these take place in Toronto. We like to build upon the fact that we're in a vibrant city that offers so much, and there's a really great, cityscape that we can use of typologies of buildings where they're, kind of shoebox shaped, and we can pick one each semester and say that's a great site for a project. And a lot of the times faculty will arrange for studio sections to go into different sites and to be able to go in, take notes, measurements, and get a sense of what that interior space means and how you transform a space through materials, color, light, scale, a lot of those things that we keep increasing and adding more elements for students to think about as they go through the program. We also like to make sure students know how to draw, not just through all of our software, but hand drawing is really important too. And that's probably what a lot of you are doing right now. You may be taking art classes in your high school or elsewhere, or maybe you just draw in your sketchbook because you just enjoy drawing. And those are the things that are really helpful in building up things like the portfolio that we require for our program. But once you come in, we teach you more of the technical drawing, and we like to do it through images like this, where you're learning about scale and just how drawings work in the profession of interior design. We also have a few other projects. This is very much about the culture of Toronto, a lot of bike riding, building in the city, but also with a coffee shop. So we like to pick up on cues that are part of what we see in our day-to-day in the city. And so this is one of our retail projects, and this is a project from a second year student. So just to give you an idea of how things look over the course of the years, where materials once again come in, the scale of people. And so it really is mimicking the kinds of projects that one might undertake in an office. But we also have other courses that give you a different sensibility about materials. And this is a course, it's part of our design dynamics sequence, and they take place in the first 2 years of the program. And it's where students are working directly in the workshop. So that first image I showed you. And we assign projects where students are learning how to work with materials like wood, plaster, just a whole range of materials, even ceramics. And with that, we give assignments that connect back to construction, as you're seeing on the left, where we have students learn how materials get put together, but then also using those to work with looking at composition, such as the drawing or more of a scan of those blocks on the right. So we're always thinking back and forth between the two-dimensional, the three-dimensional, and how they work together to complete a full story. And then that gets translated into the built realm. So within our design dynamics sequence, these are a few more study models that students worked on in the third of the 4 courses. And students end up really loving these courses because they can get their hands dirty. They're in the workshop. Because a lot of the other courses are very, kind of clean, where you're working on your laptop and doing a lot of images and drawings. So we try to find a nice balance between that, knowing that in the end, all of these pieces will contribute to your professional portfolio, which then leads you out and helps you find a job. And I will talk about that towards a few more slides into this. So one of the areas that we also have students always go through a sequence of courses with is design technology. And that's where students are really learning, like what you're seeing here, the nuts and bolts about how interiors are constructed. Everything from how a door handle works to a detail in a window frame, pieces that you quite never think about until you get really immersed into the interior and start having to make some of those decisions and selections. We encourage more of that through different electives that we offer. And I will show you a few examples of student work from our electives. And the electives are courses that we have a whole collection of them, and you get to choose them in year 3 and 4 of our program. Maybe you've done a little research on us, I hope so, but if not, just to help put things into perspective, we are a 4-year program, and it is an accredited undergraduate program. And what that means is when a student graduates and then seeks to become a licensed or registered interior designer, they graduate with a professionally accredited degree, which is given accreditation through an organization called the Council for Interior Design Accreditation. And so that fulfills one piece in the step of becoming a registered interior designer through the Interior Designers of Canada. And our local chapter is we call it ARIDO, but it's the Association for Registered Interior Designers of Ontario. So we have this kind of nice professional track that students go on. But aside from that, we can talk about that a little bit more or help answer questions. But these are some examples of built works that students make in our furniture design elective. So students really take what they're learning in those courses and then applying them to a real life project. I always try to keep these projects, and the students don't let me. They love them. They want to take them home, but they're beautiful. A few more projects we have students work on in electives, work with textiles. And we have a whole range of electives in our textiles, And one of them is specifically working with industrial felt. We do have, she's a bit of a international superstar based in Toronto. And so she teaches this course, and she has installations kind of all over the world, but she loves coming in and teaching our students how to work with textiles, and even has had permanent installations come out of her elective and be installed in our library. So it's kind of exciting that students can see their projects actually realized at full scale in our world. Students are encouraged to engage the city, engage the outside world, even webinars, and we assign that through something called our field notes, or sometimes called Passport, which you're seeing at the bottom here. And it's a way of just encouraging them to absorb design outside the classroom. We're located in a place where we have lectures offered in so many places, and now that we're virtual this year, there's even more lectures that have opened up. So students can see just great designers and them speaking about their projects. And we have students document them in something that looks like this sketchbook. And they're really quite wonderful because it also captures a wonderful semester of the students' time during their time with us at RSID. And so with all of these, as students move up through the different levels, we also have opportunities for travel and exchanges. And one program that we started a few years ago was our summer studio, which takes place in Cortona, Italy. And these are some of our students and a faculty member enjoying the steps in Cortona on a warm summer night. So we're looking forward to when we can start doing that again, and a few of the other sites that they visit as well. So this one's really nice because it runs for about 7 weeks during the summer, and then it gives students an opportunity to be able to travel afterwards as well, and just, stay in Europe or fly somewhere else and continue that experience of international travel, which is something that our school, FCAD, the university really encourages and supports students to do. We've also had faculty in the past take students for maybe a week or so, and they build it into the course where they've traveled to Guatemala or to the Netherlands, a few other places as well. So we really do try and get our students out into the world. We are really fortunate to have a number of travel grants that students can have. We have an incredible donation from a grant called the Anne LeBaire grant, which gives students a couple $1,000s to be able to apply towards their travel. It's just such an incredible gift that we received. And we do have quite a number of scholarships across all 4 years of our program. And I think a whole bunch of those are listed on our website. It should be pretty up to date. We are somehow always still getting scholarships from donors. So it's really wonderful. We kind of almost have to keep up with it. And a few other places that our exchange programs are partners with go and send students to Australia, England, Ireland, New Zealand, Scotland, essentially to a lot of English-speaking countries. So that way there's not a language barrier, but we also do have connections to Mexico. So there's always different unique places that we partner with to make opportunities for students to travel. And then when the time does allow, and we're not in our current pandemic time, as soon as we can, we will be shifting right back into our yearly field trip. And this is for our first and second years, where we take about a week, and everybody in the first and second year gets on a bus with chaperones and faculty, and we drive every other year to New York City. And then on that other year, we choose another city. It might be Montreal, Ottawa, Boston, Washington. It could be something that's like in a reasonable drive. And we have students work on assignments in these cities, but it's also meant to give you a chance to see really great design, kind of packed into a week where, normally we use our city, Toronto, as much as we can, but this really puts students into another location, such as the High Line in New York, which is a wonderful path outside, and you can see a lot of the really great garden along the edge of it. And then there's different moments of great installations, a really great Zaha Hadid building along the edge of it. So if you don't know who she is, she's a fantastic architect who had been working for the past few decades, and one of her last projects was right along the High Line. We take students to museums, and all of this is covered through ancillary fees. So you have it part of your tuition, and it's all taking care of all the arrangements. And it's also just a nice bonding time that we build in for first and second year students, just so that way first year students feel like they have a connection to a year that's older to them, that they can talk to share experiences. And so we see that as a really positive piece of our curriculum. To give you a sense of our building, I wanted to show some of the spaces that we have. And the image on the right is from our workshop. We do have a full-time technologist and support for the technologist, and they're really incredible. They do tutorials. One of the silver linings that has come out of being virtual this year is having a whole bunch of videos on how to make things, like how to make models, how to cut boards the right way, just all these kind of quick 2 to 3 minute videos that are now part of our library, and a collection that students can tap into and use as a resource. So our workshop is where we do all of our hands-on messy work, but always under the guidance of a technologist. And we have a design center, which looks so clean and neat, but I feel like once students are in there, it just kind of becomes messy, but it's messy with lots of different material samples. And we do have a full-time resource specialist who works with students to help them find the right materials for their projects, because we know so much about making the interior involves materiality and how you can find the right materials, how we can look at sustainable materials. And so that's really the focus of the collection, is having sustainable materials. And it is the focus of our full-time resource specialist. Next to us, we have a building that was constructed about a year ago. And in the lower level of it was the creative technology lab that was built into it. And this is an incredible space for using all different kinds of technology, from our big KUKA robot that you're seeing on the right to smaller robots, all different types of digital fabrication equipment. And the lab is it's directed by a faculty member in the School of Interior Design. So we're really fortunate at being able to have students bridge both traditional interior design, but also for those that want to move into more of the digital fabrication and technology side. One of the machines that you can see kind of in the back is a 3D knitting machine. So, another way for students to really think about what shapes the interior and working with textiles to do that. So at the end of each year, we have a big year-end show. This year and the past year, it is virtual, but when we do have it, this gives you a sense of our building. And this is one of our studio floors where we are in a great old warehouse building that's brick and heavy timber. And it's such a great building for students to learn from. In a lot of the technology and construction courses, people can actually, point to the building and say, there's your beam, there's your column, there's your HVAC. And it's just a nice way for students to learn about interiors and kind of all of the, equipment that goes into it. And we can see it through the building that we occupy. So in the center of that is our Dean, Charles Falzon, giving his speech, which was really wonderful. And just, it's a nice time of year to celebrate with families, friends. We hand out awards. It's just a great event that we have. And our students are the ones that run it. But I also want to give you a little bit of insight into our alumni. And I will just give you a few examples of our alumni who have graduated over a range of years, and they support us in so many ways. So Yabu Pushelberg, George Yabu and Glenn Pushelberg are probably the most famous interior designers you can find. I feel like if you go anywhere, everybody knows Yabu Pushelberg. They have works that are international, kind of all the big hotels. They recently launched their own furniture line. So they're doing lots of incredible things, and they support us with scholarships, internships. And one thing that our program does require is an internship. And the bigger umbrella of it is it requires 400 hours of internship hours, but those are also broken down into various pieces. So some of it is volunteer time that might take place at something called the Interior Design Show. So I'm not sure if any of you have been to it, but it's in Toronto, takes place once a year, and it's in the convention center, and sort of this big hub of, a lot of products, manufacturers. The organization that runs it brings in these amazing keynote speakers. And so it just becomes this one big event that's so important, and also allows students to make connections to different industry partners that also helps with their internship. But the internship it sums up basically into one, summer working full time, and not even a whole summer, but it's enough that it puts that time on your resume. And so that way you are prepared to then go into the profession when you graduate. We find that a lot of students end up flipping from an internship into a full-time position with the same office once they graduate. And we have courses that prepare students for an internship. They teach you how to prepare your portfolio, a cover letter, your resume, kind of all the different key pieces that do that. And we have somebody who's dedicated for that, who's our internship coordinator, and she's just done amazing things with our program over the past 5 years in gaining so many more internship opportunities with the top offices. We also have students doing internships abroad. So it's kind of everywhere, and students can actually think about, where they would like to do that during their time. So Yapel Pusherberg, really just incredible alumni, and Ashley and Stanley make up Mason Studio, and they're a younger office that has just kind of like skyrocketed also into an international practice. And so with Mason Studio, they also do a lot of restaurants, hotels, a few residences, but really they've kind of moved into doing a lot of international hotels. And this is just a sense of their, materiality, what their aesthetics look like. Materials, once again, and light, really important to how they design. And another recent graduate, Evan Jerry, who has Studio in Nancy. And these are some of his products that are now available through the furniture company. If you've come across CB2, it's a big company, and he works with them doing all different types of products from lighting to textiles to furniture. So right now we're just waiting for his next collection to come out in 2021. So you can check with CB2. And also Birdie Felix, another office that does a lot of retail projects. And so this gives you a sense of, the different types of retail they work on, everything from shoes to clothing, kind of a whole different range of products. And so we're always bringing our alumni, back into the school to see student work, to give lectures, so students can actually feel like they're connecting with alumni. So as I'm closing up this part of the presentation, we are going to help answer questions, but also share a few pages on our website that are really key to the experience. But I also want to share this slide, which is recognizing the Ryerson community and the experiences that are offered. And there is student support, which includes things like our FCAD Student Success Center, which has transitioned into our Dean's Office in new ways. And the International Student Support, which was really active this past year, especially when we had students abroad. Tri-mentoring program that helps students move into new areas and gaining more practical experience. We also have academic accommodation support. So for students that need special accommodation, our faculty are always working with students to be able to give them support so they can succeed. And then we also have on and off campus housing. So I know a lot of these things are probably being presented to you through the larger Ryerson admissions team, but just wanted to add a few of those here. And wanted to land on this image once again, just to remind you of the things that we do in our school and how active students are in all different areas, not just in our hands-on courses, but we do have students that run organizations like our Yearend Show and our course union that are always getting students involved across all the years. So maybe I'll end here and I'll stop sharing my screen so that way I'll have Janine also jump in and provide more information. And then we're also always glad to help answer questions.
Okay, I hope you guys can see my screen. I just wanted to introduce our website. I was kind of keeping an eye on the questions as we were going along, and there were a lot of questions that could be answered by visiting our website. This is our main page. And here you can, there's programs, people, resources. There's a lot of information on here. The program section describes the different types of courses we have. The resources, Lois touched base on, sorry. Lois, can you talk?
Sure, and I'm just going to share one more. Oh, if you want to stop sharing screen, I just wanted to, there's just one more website that I thought I would share with you on one more slide that I had. So you can see here, obviously thank you for joining us, but you can also check this website at the bottom, which will give you more information about admissions and undergraduate and our undergraduate program, because we are a 4-year undergraduate program. So I'm just going to, let's see, I think you saw that Maybe you didn't see that. If not, we'll share the website. You can always go into the chat and you'll get that. So, but for our 4-year program, I'm also happy to answer any questions, but maybe I'll let people, anybody who wants to throw in a question or throw one out to me, I'm glad to answer them.
Hey, Janine, we do have a couple of questions here ready to go from students. So the first one was just some clarifications about those non-academic requirements that students are required to submit. They would like a little bit more clarification on that 2-part essay, and when is the due date?
Thank you. I have a Halls now. That should be good. Funny enough, I asked before this seminar, I was asking Les, I'm like, do you have water? I'm the one who needed the water. I guess it was psychological. So yes, we do have a 2-part application process. There's the academic requirements and the non-academic requirements. Anything academic, I redirect to the admissions, and non-academic is the portfolio. And you can send me emails, you can ask me questions. I'm sharing our screen, how to apply, because all the information is on here. Under requirements, there's the academics and non-academics, that's the portfolio. All the information is on here. There's descriptions, the written submission. It is a PDF upload. Somebody was asking about a website. If you can't submit the website, you have to submit a PDF document in your portal. So I would recommend like downloading your images or whatever your artwork is. The projects themselves, we're really looking at anything that displays your creativity, drawing skills, your understanding of design. We don't want to see submissions that are like computer generated, because really we'll teach you that. We don't need you to show us how well you know how to use a computer program, because that's not what we're looking for. We're really looking for your creative submissions. There are a few that are required. Over here, the black and white freehand drawings. There's a staircase, a collection of organic materials, leaves, etc., and a freehand drawing of a chair. So other than that, there's the written submission. This is an example provided to you to sort of inspire you on how to submit a written part about like design and how you understand design. And then part 2 is really to tell us about yourself and basically highlight anything that sets you apart as an applicant. It is a competitive program, so if you happen to have, I don't know, travel experience and were inspired about design from your travels, or anything, you know, cultural background, anything like that that you feel like would help with your application, that's where you put it. Any other questions about the portfolio?
They asked about perspective pieces, like should a portfolio include perspective pieces? And does the freehand drawing need to be on an 8x10?
Well, the 8x10 doesn't. Sorry?
I misread the question. Is it included in the 8 to 10 pieces, or is that an additional piece they need to include? I'm sorry.
Oh, not 8x10, 8 to 10. Okay. Yeah, like you can include it in the 8 to 10 projects. Really with the 8 to 10 projects, like focus on quality versus quantity. Like if you've got 8 fantastic pieces, don't throw in an extra 2 just because you think it'll help you. Like if you've got 8 fantastic pieces, use those. I lost my train of thought. I know Lois has mentioned in the past that I saw somebody talking about like their drawing skills and stuff like that. I know in previous sessions, Lois has mentioned some of her favorite pieces has come from people's sketchbooks, that it's not for class. It's just really them drawing in their sketchbooks and, progressing and getting better. And that's where they're creative the most. That's what we want to see. So.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add, you can feel free to scan your sketchbook pages, just scan it, and seeing, even 2 pages of a sketchbook is really wonderful, because a lot of the times that's where we find potential applicants the most comfortable in terms of expressing how they can draw, what they're drawing, rather than kind of being forced to do an assignment. So, look at your work and see what you feel the strongest about, and that should tell you about what to submit.
Amazing. The next question has to do with architectural science as well. What can you differentiate these 2 programs a little further for this student? What are the differences between interior design and architectural science?
Yeah, so that is a great question. I feel like I get this question all the time. So it's because it's a very common one. You kind of can't help asking, what is the difference between them? And so the way I like to think about it is, with interiors, we really do almost think about it as the interior shell on the inside. And we're looking at everything that's, all the way down to the person, the furniture that they're sitting on, that's supporting whatever activity that they need to do, whether it's live, work, kind of all those different things. And then all the materialities, the surfaces that one would engage with, whether it's even a door handle or, floor covering. Like, it's all of those pieces that surround you. But we also have students think about it as, well, it could be a really large project too. For example, it could be, a new housing complex that's being designed in downtown Toronto, and students might be given the shell, like the architectural shell, but then they would design everything on the inside. So, the width of a corridor, the connection from one room to the next room. We still have to follow codes and a lot of the health, safety, welfare elements that are part of what happens on the interior. But students don't end up designing the engineering part of the shell. So doing all the calculations that would be required for things that we call load bearing, like, walls that actually do hold up the building, the columns, like those are actually called the load bearing elements. And then there's other walls that if you knock down, that's okay, nothing's going to fall down. Those are the non-load bearing. And so that's where we really differentiate ourselves, is that space of working in the non-load bearing. But we do have our students span everything from understanding interiors and decoration down to the smallest detail, all the way up to architecture, because we know that our students will graduate and practice in offices and need to be able to speak to all those different professions. So they still have all of that knowledge, but there's less of the technical side of how a building is constructed in what we do.
Yes, I agree. I always get that question, but you explain it way better than I could ever explain it. So thank you for that. The next question is the workload in this program intense?
I would, anytime, okay. Students coming from high school need to adjust to learning at a university level. So one thing I always tell like our students coming into orientation is you have to take that into account. It's a competitive program. So all the students that do get into the program are usually top of their class. And then their first year at university, they're quite surprised because they're like, how did I get a C? Like, how did that happen? And the truth of the matter is you're adjusting. You've got to give yourself a little bit of a break. You got to give yourself some time to adjust. But the program itself is very hands-on, and you get out of it what you put into it. There's a lot of dedication. Sometimes because it's a creative program, it's not necessarily like 9 to 3, 9 to 5. Like, students starts at 12 and might work till 3, or, it depends on what their style of creativity is. One thing I do suggest to students is that I've seen a few questions about minors. I wouldn't necessarily look into starting your minor right away, like in first year. I would probably wait till the second year to do that, just so you do get that first year under your belt and get a sense of how much work goes into it and how to fit these extra courses you're going to be taking for your minor into your program.
That's a great piece of advice. Thank you. So many students are always interested in minors and they're not sure how and when to get that started. So thank you for mentioning that. The next two questions have to do with software. What software will we learn in the program, or what softwares are students expected to use in the program?
So I'm happy to help answer this one. And we do take students through a progression of software. So in the first semester, it's really all hand drawing, but as soon as you move into the second semester of first year, we teach AutoCAD. And that's just a really basic program that every student should know. And we have a fantastic faculty member who teaches it. Like, it's just, they end up making beautiful drawings, which I've never really said before about AutoCAD, but we have a faculty member who has done that and gotten these images published in incredible journals and magazines. So it's done really well. And then after that, in the second year, we shift into the whole Adobe suite, learning everything from, Photoshop, Illustrator, just kind of a whole bunch of parts through InDesign with the Adobe suite. And then after that, we start introducing Rhino, because that's a nice 3D modeling software. And we find that between all of those, students have learned enough about how to approach the different commands in software programs that they can start learning other ones as they need to. But we do have an elective that allows students to learn Revit, which is a program that some offices use. So for example, interior designers that go into really, really large offices, like, it might be 100+ person office that has all the different disciplines in it, from architecture to landscape architects, engineers, interior designers, where they're collaborating on really big projects. They'll use Revit as the common software that lets them work across all the different disciplines. So those are the main software programs that we teach.
Amazing, thank you. And like you've both mentioned already, students are not expected to know these softwares when they enter the program. They are going to be learning these softwares as they take these classes. All right, the next question is, what's the standard size for portfolio pieces? Is there an expectation?
Janine, do you want to take it?
We both kind of went at the same time. Well, it's a PDF submission, so it doesn't really have a bearing, because, like, if you, for instance, if you do a sculpture, that's not an 8x10 piece of paper. So you take a photo of it, and then you put that photo in your PDF and upload it. So there isn't really a standard size.
Thank you. And I think that question probably arose because of my confusion in reading that question wrong this earlier. But thank you for clarifying. How many classes do students take a day or a week?
I have the first year curriculum right here. And so on our website, we have under program, curriculum, first year, all the years actually, but I'll pull up the first year. IRC 113, Introduction to Visual Communication, that's 3 hours a week. So there's a 3-hour lecture. Again, 3-hour lecture, 3-hour lecture. 6 hours is the studio, design studio. Lois, you might be able to describe design studio better than I can. And then we also have them take an elective the first year. One in fall, one in winter. And those liberal studies courses are actually run through the Faculty of Arts, actually. So there's quite a variety of those.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add that that's a really good kind of way of seeing the number of hours of in-person classes that you're taking. And then there is assignments outside of it, but with some of them, like the design dynamics, since much of that requires being in the workshop, most of the time actually does allow you to complete the assignments during that time, or there might be a little bit of work outside of that time. And also with the 6-hour studio, that means, like, if you're meeting with a faculty member and you're meeting in a small group of maybe 4 students in your group, your faculty member might see you for maybe that group like for an hour. So you kind of get some nice feedback, and you're learning from other students as well by hearing the feedback about their projects too. And so that's the 6 hours. If you're not in that group meeting, it means you have the rest of that in-class time to continue to do work. So we actually really do think of it as being, a studio where you're kind of, doing many different things over the course of that 6 hours.
Great. And like you said, if you're coming from high school, a high school day is very structured. It's very organized. You're going maybe 9 to 3. In university, things are a little different. Some of that time that you do have on your own is your own, and you have to manage how you use that time, whether that be finishing assignments or other things. All right. The next question is, how do I know if interior design is right for me if I don't have much experience in actual interior design?
That is a really good question, and so well put too. It's one of those things where it's I think when a lot of applicants come to the program or start looking at interior design, it's something that they never really thought about because it's never really introduced throughout middle schools, high schools. And so it's usually by, meeting somebody and realizing, oh, that's what interior design does. I would say it's thinking about, if you find yourself wanting to be creative, if you like drawing or making. I know some people who just really like making and making models, but not necessarily always drawing. So that strength can go either way. But you're also kind of feeling always an affinity towards interior environments. Like you might walk into spaces and say, this is a really interesting space. And if you're even questioning, the spaces around you, it probably means that you are interested in interior design. We find also a lot of students come to us who are interested in sustainability and the built environment. And then this gives them an opportunity to think about how they can be designing more sustainable interior environments that take place in the interior. I can see Janine is flipping through a whole bunch of different student projects. And this does give you an idea of, if you like making things or visualizing things, then this is a great program for you. Or even thinking about how a collection of items are orchestrated or choreographed on the interior. So hopefully that gives you a sense of, feeling like, oh yeah, I've always been interested, but never really knew about it. So those are some things to think about.
That's awesome. Thank you. The next question is, how good do my drawing skills have to be in order to get into this program?
So it kind of depends. Like with drawing, we're not looking for somebody who is necessarily completely knows how to draft, because those are things that we will teach you, or needing to know how to draw in AutoCAD, because we're going to teach you that. So, it's not about having that really, precise skill of drafting, but we do want to see how you work with materials or visualize. And that could end up being many different ways of thinking about drawing. So somebody could be really fantastic at doing, life drawings in charcoal. And to me, if you're great at that, those are things that could go into your portfolio that prepare you, because you start understanding how to work with certain mediums and materials, and you have a sensibility about it and that you're comfortable with it. So to me, that constitutes, doing well with drawing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that hard line drafted drawing.
All right. This next one says, do you have any recommendations for mature students who are looking to change careers? The portfolio seems very daunting when you don't necessarily have projects to pull from.
I'll touch on that a little bit. I have noticed since I've started at interior design, we do seem to have a higher number of students doing this as a second degree. And I think that's really interesting. One thing I would say is that anticipate completing this program in 4 years, even if you're coming from another university. We do offer transfer credits, but they're assessed on a case-by-case basis. So If you've already finished a degree somewhere else, chances are you might have your electives covered, but our program is very specific because it's accredited. So even though you've finished a degree somewhere else, there's still requirements that have to be met. There's still courses you have to take. I saw somebody asking, like, can I take this courses in the summer and get this program done shorter? No, it's still a 4-year program. The core courses that are required are offered year 1, 2, 3, 4. Like you can't shorten the 4-year program. But I lost my train of thought again. For mature students, right? Like I said, it is a program where we do have a decent number of students doing this as a second degree. So don't feel like you're going to come to our program and be all your peers are going to be like 18 years old. Like it's really across the board.
Thank you, Janine. And it's really important to note, like both Janine and Lois said, this is an accredited program and it's a professional program. So there are a number of courses that you do need to take in order to get that professional title at the end of your degree. All right, this next one has to do with laptops. I was wondering what type of laptop you recommend. I recently bought a MacBook Pro, but heard it wasn't the best choice. What are your thoughts?
Janine, are you able to go to our laptop page?
I am.
Or our computer page? So we do have information on our website that does give information about computer specifications. And we do have some notes in there that if you did buy a Mac, you'll need things like the Windows Boot Camp to be able to run certain software programs, but it's totally doable. I would say, I think around the studio, at least half the laptops I see are Macs. So there's all these different ways of working around it to make them work with all the programs, because Macs have their advantages too. So I would say, either choice is fine. It's just a matter of getting it set up so that way you can run the different software that you'll need. I did see also a question about AutoCAD and the software. And so for the most part, a lot of these companies do have a year free subscription for students. So as long as they know somebody is a student, they can get it for free. Or if you do need to pay a student fee, it's pretty much the cost of a textbook. So it might be under $100 to have it for, I think, at least a year. So they understand, all these companies understand that students need access to it. And so they find different ways of making it available at a rate that is for students.
Awesome, thank you. And as Janine is showing you on the site, if you don't know where to find it, well, actually, it's pretty clear where to find it, but there is the URL at the top of the screen as well, if you need to reference that page again. All right, the next question is, there are a couple of interior design programs in Toronto. What sets Ryerson apart?
Oh my goodness. Are there even other interior design programs? I didn't know that. Really, I think if you were to see our school and the work that comes out, which shows up on our website, or speak to alumni, a lot of the practitioners, they would know that we are ranked, I would say, the highest in Canada. There's a lot of different rankings, and Ryerson's program is always in the top 10, usually in the top 8, sometimes in the top 3, depending on how many they're looking at. And it's because our program is really, I would say we meet all of the accreditation parts. Like but to us, that's just the baseline. Like that's not what makes a great program. It's all the things that we build on top of that, where we have outstanding faculty that have, international recognition. Same thing with our alumni who are always coming in and giving feedback. And so it's that combination, along with all of our resources, that allow students to excel in the work that they do. Our building and all the resources in it that include our workshop, We also do have a small digital fabrication lab within our building that I didn't show you an image of. So there's all these different resources that we have that allow students to really build up the best possible projects, to have critical insight into the space of interiors. I think because our courses also really are grounded in the design studio, knowing that's sort of the ultimate space that people coming through our program will graduate and then go into and practice. So it's, what we do. I think just knowing all the resources that we put into the student experience is what helps make us and sets us apart from all the other programs.
Amazing, thank you. Plus, the advantage is Ryerson itself. It's you get FCAD, you get the faculty of communication and design if you're in interior design, you get the whole being in the center of the city, which we've already talked a little bit about. Mm-hmm. The next question is, what type of work is assigned to students? Is there a lot of drawings? Is there a lot of essay writings, etc.?
Yeah, so in the course of the 4 years of study, there's kind of a whole range of experiences we have students doing. And we do expect students to know how to draw, but drawing in the language of how you go into practice. And then we also expect students to be able to materialize things. So a lot of model making, working with materials. And then we expect students to be able to articulate their design process and the way that they developed ideas that they furthered in the course of the semester through design projects. And so with that, we also have our history theory courses that students are asked to reflect on, different topics that they're learning at the time. So there is writing components throughout the 4 years, and that just makes students stronger in terms of being able to have that verbal communication, the written communication, not just the design communication. That's kind of the whole piece that we put together. And that's where we really do build upon the strengths of Ryerson, those liberals courses that are offered. And then the same thing with our own stream of history and theory in our own program, where students learn about the history of design across different time periods, the whole international scope of design, and then really kind of getting embedded in that whole history of interior design, not just the big picture of design and architecture and all the related areas. So those are parts that we really try to make sure that students are well-rounded in all of those areas. So there will be writing. It's not the majority of what a student does, because the majority is really the design studio projects. That's where emphasis mostly is.
All right, the next one is, can you tell me any pros and cons of this program and being an interior designer?
Janine, you might help me with this one, but I can't really think of any cons. I think there's only pros. And I have to say, I get all this different feedback and research about the discipline, and especially right now thinking about students looking for jobs at this time. And there are all these, labor reports that come out through when the Canadian websites, the federal, not the provincial, but through one of the national websites. And it always shows that interior design is a discipline that there's always a need for designers. And we can see it through the amount of construction happening around us. It's a discipline that is, I feel like, only becoming more and more needed, not just because of the way people are rethinking how we live and work right now in these different pods and zones and bubbles, but outside of that, we see construction still happening and preparing for density in cities. And when you have density, it calls on interior designers and the need for designers to have the insight to be able to figure out how we shape those spaces. So that's one area. We know that a lot of businesses, retail, restaurants, that they do kind of a facelift, a changeover roughly every 5 years. Designers are needed for that. So we know that it's a discipline that is really active in being part of the built environment, and always kind of in need for different projects. But aside from that, it's also shaping really important spaces, like the way that we look at hospitals, healthcare. So somebody can be very compassionate about one area and be able to affect it by bringing design to it. So there is a lot of empathy that we bring into our designed environments when we have to think about people who are using it and wanting to design the best possible spaces for them. So to me, there's only, pros in this discipline. But Janine, I'll let you add anything to that if you want.
I don't know about any. Of course, I'm going to say there's no cons. There's no cons. Come join our program. We want to have you. I would just say that have a think and really see if this program appeals for you. Like I said, transitioning from university is a big step. And there's lots to think about. And interior design is a competitive program. We get lots of applications, people submit the portfolios, but you really, if it appeals to you and speaks to you, it's completely a field that's fantastic to go in. I'm sorry, my cat's talking. He does that. And I think that's probably why we have such a high number of people doing this as a second degree, is because they've done, they've done the BA in science and made the parents happy and, it's all good. But now it's time for them to decide what career do I want to do? Like, where do I want to go? So I think it's a fantastic program, and it's a small program, so everybody knows each other, and there's a lot of support there. So and being downtown campus is pretty cool. Like the environment of Ryerson. I've worked in other departments other than interior design. I've worked in the School of Fashion. I worked over in a different faculty, and one thing across the board that I've gotten from different schools is it's the community, it's the environment of going to school down on the downtown campus, and that's something students really like.
Absolutely. As a former student, I could definitely say that was definitely a draw that I found to Ryerson, that it was in downtown Toronto. It is past 5 o'clock. We do have 2 more questions, if that's okay with both Lois and Janine. But I do just want to let those at home or in their offices know that we will not be taking any more live questions after these 2 questions. All right, the first one is, what does it look like for learning, and especially studio work, when everything is remote due to COVID-19? Are students in the program now currently doing school at home or in the studio?
So that's one that's, I was waiting for that question to come up. And so we are doing everything remotely. And I think it was during March, we realized that we were going to be in this for a little while. And so over the summer, we just started preparing and doing our research and finding all the best possible ways of teaching design studio online, doing it virtually. And so all of us, I feel like all the faculty, we just kind of spread out, attended all these different, webinars and met up with other colleagues to be able to learn the best practices. But we were also saying, well, what do we do really well that we want to make sure that we're doing that can give our students the Ryerson experience? And for us, that is meeting in small groups where we do have, our studio sizes are roughly about anywhere between 20 and 22 students for one faculty member. And then we have 5 of those sections. So there's roughly 100 students per year broken down into 5 different studio sections. And that's our smallest class size. And so within that, the faculty member usually meets with students either one-on-one or in small groups of maybe 3 or 4. And that's something that we can obviously keep going. So we use another software platform called Miro that is almost like one big studio desk that all the students can upload their sketches, their models, everything, and it becomes like their virtual desk. And so you can kind of walk through and see everything. You can zoom in, zoom out. And then we also use Zoom, where faculty members can have those smaller group meetings with the students. And that's just a really nice way of having that one-on-one experience, but also being able to learn from your classmates. And that's a lot of what happens in design studios. So we found a way to learn those best practices that are out there, and any kind of tips and clues about how to best teach virtually, but then also bring it into our environment so it makes sense to keep students in the kind of Ryerson mode. So when we do go back to in-person, you'll be like, oh yeah, we're still meeting in groups of 3 or 4. Like, that's still the same. And there is the big desk that, you know, you can see everybody's work. So we found ways to mimic that in the virtual environment.
I also wanted to add that we have a course union who's been very active on doing social stuff as well. So they have, like, you know, sessions where you just kind of hang out and do your work together like you would if you were in the building. And they have like a monthly Netflix, let's all watch a movie together. So that was another way of moving things to virtual.
Amazing. Okay, I have one last one. Last question. How do you think the competitiveness of this program has evolved over time? Would you say ideas or creativity behind the work is more important than technical skills?
So that's a really nicely articulated question. It's interesting. I think maybe because the program has grown a little bit over the years, that you would think that would make it less competitive because we let in more students, but it does have a sense of competitiveness to it. So that's one piece, is just the admissions part. But then within it, I think students, there is competition. I think there's always, students feel like they want to do better. I think sometimes it's their own competition, like they're competing with themselves and not necessarily always with each other. But there's also a lot of student collaboration and support in our program. So students aren't just working in a silo on their own project. We do have a lot of times where students are working in groups, and that's one way of making sure that they're learning about what it means to be collegial, to work together. It's part of what they'll be doing in the profession. So we start preparing for that early on. So I hope that helps give some example of, you know, there is the competitiveness, but I think sometimes it comes through in different ways, but there's also wanting everybody to work together. In terms of a technical skill or creative skill, you know, ideally somebody would find the right balance between those. And we also, like, I'll admit it, it's great when you see a student do a beautiful drawing, but if they don't know how it actually comes together, then it falls a little short. Sometimes somebody can have a great creative idea or even the technical part. So it's always, like, we want to make sure they have the balance of those parts. It's not that one is going to make you better than the other, but it's also our job to be able to make sure that we're teaching everybody and giving you the opportunities and ideas to be able to explore all those different areas so you become stronger in all those areas.
Great. Well, we've gone a little over time, so I am going to wrap up this session here. I'd like to thank Lois, Janine, and everyone on the back end who's been diligently answering questions. To everyone watching, thank you for joining us today. And on behalf of Ryerson University, have a safe rest of your day. And we hope to see you in our upcoming sessions throughout the week. So until next time, have a good night, everyone, and goodbye.